Hello everyone, and welcome to my first impressions of the first wave of Gothic spoilers. Let's have a look. So the first card that we're going to look at is Day of Judgment. Fire, 7 mana, 3/5 threshold. Unique magic damns Deserving Devils. The game text box reads, place the cross anywhere in the realm. Banish evil and damage unit occupying affected squares. So there it is. The box is a crucifix. Essentially. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares, as opposed to 9 like Major Explosion. Others who've commented on this card before have pointed out that they don't really think it's as good as Major Explosion from Beta and Alpha. I think that that's true. However, it's difficult to judge when it's only just come out and we don't know what is going to be out there that's going to constitute evil. As I understand it, evil means undead, demons, and monsters. So anything like that will just get banished from being damaged by this at all. It makes no difference how much damage it does. Then there's more to it than that as well. In regards to it in competition with Major Explosion, if you're drafting or playing sealed with just Gothic packs, so just the packs for this, you don't have access to Major Explosion. In that bracket, in that area of playing sorcery, this, in comparison to whatever else is in these Gothic, amongst these Gothic cards that will come out with this card in this set, this may be really good. As a matter of fact, just by definition, even if you did have access to Major Explosion, because you were playing with some beta packs as well, whatever, you'd still probably quite like this as a finisher. When you're playing limited, either draft or sealed, finishers are pretty good. A lot of the time you'll find that you can get access to enough ordinary minions to win board control and door them, but you need those finishers that you can just so easily put into your deck if you were playing constructed. But beyond that, beyond its use in limited, in constructed, if you were to be making a mono fire deck, for example, or a deck with a lot of fire cards, and you've already got Major Explosion twice, and you'd like something like it again, this gives you access to another spell like it on top of the 2 Major Explosions that you already have. So Day of Judgment could be quite good in that sense within the constructed meta as well. However, all of that being said about limited and then constructed, I have to say that I do agree. I agree with the critics of this card as well. For a start, I don't even like Major Explosion that much. I find it very fiddly. I find it very, very difficult sometimes to avoid hitting your own avatar if you have to use your avatar as the spellcaster of it. I think Cradle Rise is better. I just think it's a bit sort of better. And thus so far in Arthurian Legends and before that Alpha Beta meta, there's not really been, and I certainly haven't thought of one that I would like to use myself, a mono fire deck. Mono seems to be the element that is the most inclined, so far as I can tell, to be least likely to be played as a mono deck where you just have fire. And there's a reason for that. Both the Avatar of Fire and the Flame Caller really do need mobility to be able to utilise their avatar ability, and the mobility that they require, it improved with Arthurian Legends with just fire, say with Siege Giant, but when I say mobility, I mean mobility where you don't have to tap. So Fire in Beta Alpha has Mad Dash, which gives you some mobility. But you have to move. It adds +1 to your movement, so you've got to tap to move. So you can't move your Flamecaller or your Avatar of Fire and then also use their tap ability. So what you really crave is Blink, which is one of the best spells in the game anyway, which means you're already going into another element, even if it's just a splash, which is air. And if you're doing that, because it's air and you don't have access to Craterize, you might still be running something with 2 Major Explosions and you want Day of Judgment as well. But on top of the fact that both those 2 avatars have to tap to use their ability, and that you want mobility, which means going into air a little bit to get Blink, and other mobility spells for that matter as well. Flanking Maneuver, for example, is another good one with a Flamecaller or an Avatar of Fire, and just a good mobility spell in general. It's also that, like, Flamecaller wants to utilise fire minions, not fire spells so much. And so Major Explosion is already not that good for him anyway, let alone this, Day of Judgment. And then Avatar of Fire is utilising fire sights to use her ability. Fire spells, not as bad with her, but like she's utilising fire sights already to use as fire spells. Major Explosion could be good with her, but yeah, I'm not sure if you need this Day of Judgment as well. However, it does come. One last thing that what it does come down to is that the Banish Evil. What difference does that Banish Evil make? This also covers more areas of the board because this part here is 4 squares along. The way it looks on the game text box, it looks like you probably have to cast that way up, for example, or you might already start to think, or the other way up, if you're like you might have to play away from yourself and that way up, so that you do 7 3 3 3 always pointed towards yourself, with the 3s on the side, on 2 other squares to the side of the 7. And newer players will probably think that that's what you've got to do elsewhere, but it won't be. Those grids are just a reference. In this way, they're limited to how much they can show you what they can do on that game text box card, and how could they not be when you've got such limited space if you want the full R's. That cross will be able to be placed to the side, so you'll be able to just do it sideways, one way or the other. You'll be able to point wherever you want, so long as it's still at right or left angles, longitude or latitude. You won't be able to do it diagonally, for example, but that will be able to be placed in any way, twisted one way or another, which gives you a lot of, like, a little bit of extra reach. There's another thing as well. I mentioned earlier that I find Major Explosion in and of itself already annoying, because sometimes I like Craterize a lot more, because you with Major Explosion, sometimes I find it very hard to avoid hitting my Avatar spellcaster, or even just another spellcaster in general, for that matter, with at least one of the 3 damage corners of the Major Explosion, and that's because you have to cast it to a site, a location nearby. As you can see from Day of Judgment, it says place the cross anywhere in the realm, so it's like Craterize in that sense, and you can do it anywhere. So you could place the 7 in the corner, and you lose 2 of the 3 damage, but you might not care. And you can easily avoid your own spellcaster. That's really great. And you might, yeah, that's really great. One final thing. In Gothic, they may bring out who knows what avatars that we haven't seen yet. They might bring out an avatar, a fire-attuned avatar, that's that benefits from fire magic spells, and then this could also be improved because of that. That's enough about Day of Judgment. I'm going to move on to these next 3. These next 3 are really simple. These 3 here, 3 power, 3 mana minions, will be terrific. Who are ordinary. Every single one is ordinary as opposed to a unique card from before, which means 4 in the constructed decks. And then a lot of them in the packs. They're going to be great in limited. Why are they going to be great in limited? They're only one threshold each. 3 powers are quite good in limited play, in sorcery. And that's it. That's the reason why you're going to get a lot of them. You're going to see a lot of them. So whatever else you're drafting into with draft, or you're manufacturing from your sealed card pool, getting one of these 3, if you happen to be going into that element, is a good card to have for draft. It'll be easy to play with whatever other element or elements you might be combining with the element that this one belongs to, and other things like that. 3 powers are good for just a good, solid minion size and cost in draft and sealed. Beyond that, they're pretty basic. I mean, they're one of the 3 evil types: monsters, demons, undead. Whatever else happens with them will depend upon whatever else is happening in the meta. We saw released a preview of the Death Knight, which puts me in mind of a Death Knight from Blizzard Entertainment's Warcraft franchise, and he buffs undead. So, and I believe he was in air. Was it Earth? No, he might have been in Earth. I can't remember whether he was Earth or air, but we'll see, and he's definitely coming out in this as well. And then he'll buff the ghoul. So if you've got the ghoul, he buffs it. Who knows what things might be out there that might buff a demon or monsters. We just don't know yet. In constructed, once again, I think it really does depend on those synergies, or it's likely that these will not be really all that good in constructed. I don't think you'll see them used very much in constructed. It really all depends on what else is out there that could affect them because of their minion type. If there's something epic out there to help demons, you might see hellhounds a lot more in constructed, and so on and so forth. Horrible hybrids monsters, something that buffs monsters, you'll see this be more likely to see this in constructed. We already know that there's that Death Knight, so you might see ghouls to be upgraded, buffed by Death Knights in a constructed deck. One thing to note for a flame caller, for hellhounds, they've only got 1 threshold. That's not necessarily all that good with flame caller, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Like sometimes with the flame caller, you might just want 1 little extra threshold to do damage, and like kobolds are a good card in general, quarrelsome kobolds. And then if they only have 1 threshold, but sometimes that can actually be okay. You might only need that 1 extra, or you might want to ping like a 1 power, and you know that the kobold will give you just that 1 little flame, fire threshold to utilise from your cemetery with your flame caller's tap ability to kill that 1 power. Yeah, so but in both cases, in limited, definitely these will be good. In constructed, it looks like perhaps not, but we really need to see. We need to see what else is going to be available to have in the constructed decks. Willing Tribute is next. So what's another ordinary? 2 power, 1 air threshold, 2 mana. You sacrifice it to untap an adjacent evil ally. This one's interesting. It looks really nice. Like I like the yellow in the background. I find that very... This art by Zone D very interesting. This one's interesting because evil means undead, as well as demons and monsters. And Pudge Butchers are a demon. So that means that you can untap a Pudge Butcher just by sacrificing this. Furthermore, you sacrifice it. You can sacrifice it when you play it. After you've played it, like sacrifice does not depend upon summoning sickness. You can just do it to sacrifice it. I was wondering if you could juxtapose the sacrifice in its game text box ability with the sacrifice to summon Moonclan werewolves from your hand, because do keep in mind that it's also mortal. The minion type is mortal. And then I asked on the Discord official rules question thread if you could do that and you can't, and I'm not surprised. So you can't just sacrifice it to do this and happen to get a Moonclan werewolf because it's being sacrificed. But what you can do is, because you're sacrificing it and it's a mortal that is dying, it does bring back Scourge zombies, and then those Scourge zombies can be untapped. They come into play tapped if they come back from your cemetery, and then they can be untapped by another one of these. As well as that, what else would synergise with? So I'm not quite sure. It's the only thing I can think of right now. I believe that if you have Lady Assault out, and she is, you can't sacrifice it. It doesn't get sacrificed if it goes back to your hand. So there won't be synergy there. Yeah, other than that, I can't think of anything else, but this could be really good with Scourge zombies. Yeah. Alright, let's move to the next one. A site this time. An Earth Threshold site. Consecrated grounds. It's exceptional. Evil has no power here. Oh, so it'll turn things that are on that site, that are monsters, demons, or undead, to 0 power. Interesting. Defensive. Good for an Earth Control deck. So like an Archimago, a Geomancer. Whether or not this will be good or not is going to depend. Once again, it's exactly like what I was saying about the 3 evil, 3 power, 1 threshold, 3 mana cards above. It's really going to depend on what's going on in the meta. It's going to depend on what else is in the Gothic pool of cards will determine whether this is good. Because at the moment it looks like it's a little bit weak to me. Unless you really need like another Earth site, it wouldn't be the worst for Pathfinder that's running Earth, because it just gives you another like relatively harmless Earth site amongst your pool, which is about to be 40 cards. In Limited, so in Draft and Sealed, I believe this will be good. You would not be shy away from picking this up to put in your Atlas pool if you were running Earth. It will help against these 3, which I can't help but noticing, all of which are not Earth. It will help defend against them if someone plays them who has the first turn. Someone plays them on their 3rd turn in Limited, and then you'll play this site in front of them. There's 0 power, they can't swing at you on that site. So you've already deprived them of one of their 3 hits with their 3 power minion of this sort. So that would be particularly good if you're running Limited, either Draft or Sealed, with only Gothic packs. So there's no minions in the pool from other sets to sort of water down the amount of them, the 3 power minions. There will be these 3 evil minion types. But that's in Limited. In Constructed, it's really going to depend on what else is going on. And now we have this one here, which is an Elite this time. Another minion, 6 power, 7 mana, 2 water threshold. Dormant Monstrosity. Once again, art looks really good. I love the way the monstrosity itself is highlighted. This is very Lovecraftian, even if not, strictly speaking, from Lovecraft's lore. Here's his books. The game text box is Voidwalk, so it's another Voidwalk minion in water, like Ghost Ship. I believe that's only the second one so far. Must be cast to a corner void, costing 2 mana less for each unit in an adjacent square. Right, so let's think about this one. Let's think. Voidwalk, 6 mana, 7. So even just the fact that you can play it into the void next to an enemy site that you can swing against if they can't and stop you with 6 power is not terrible. Like that on its own is already nice. The fact that this synergizes if you're running a water air deck of a certain sort, like a spirit deck that's running water and air, synergizes with Ultimate Horror. He can bring it back if it dies because it has Void Walk. That's okay. It's a monster, so it's not a spirit, though, so there's no synergy within the spirit deck in regards to it being a spirit itself. So you can't bring it back with Ghost Ship. However, monster is one of the 3 new evils in Gothic, and it will be really interesting to see how this card may be enhanced by other things that are coming out in Gothic that do synergize with it being a monster. And if that's the case, that means that whatever synergizes with it being a monster will also synergize with the Great Old One, which is also itself a monster. Must be cast to a corner void, so it has to be cast to a corner void. Okay, so you can't just place it on an E-void to pressure, to threaten an enemy side. It has to be a corner. But costing 2 less for each unit in an adjacent square. So once again, this could really synergize quite well in constructed meta that's coming up, I believe. Though of course, you know, we have to wait and see, but I think it will go very well in the Spirit deck because the Ninth Legion, you play into the corner, it stands to reason a lot of time it'll be swinging to a space that's next to that corner. It doesn't even need to have gotten onto a site to simply be there, and to make this cost only 5 mana now, to now have another 6 power in the same corner that the Ninth Legion are in, or that they started in if they're still nearby enough after having only moved 1 more square away, to reduce this by 2. And 2 is huge, reducing the cost by 2. I mean, that's a 5 mana, like the cost for an Amazon Warriors, for a 6 power that's got Void Walk that you're putting into the Void. That's really good. Yeah, we'll see how this one goes as well. So, that's it for these first wave of Gothic spoiler cards here. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.